Love, peace, and power, everybody. Welcome to the Mystery Arcade Occult Multiversity. My name is Kilel Kiano, aka Konami Codes. Thank you for joining me again on this wonderful Lionsgate portal, this 888. Happy Lionsgate. I hope it has been wonderfully abundant for all of you. I hope it has been confirmation after confirmation. I hope it has been where you have been able to get a smidgen of sunshine as opposed to the rain I have had all day, but I'm thankful for that. I want to welcome my wonderful brother, my honored guest, my hometown hero, Keith Young. How are you doing, brother? Happy Lionsgate. How you feeling?
Peace. I'm doing very well. Happy Lionsgate to you. Yeah, things are going pretty well. We actually had a little bit more sun, it looks like, than where you're at. I had quite a bit of sun myself today, so I definitely got to enjoy a lot of that energy. I went outside for lunch and spent some time out there, so just soaking it in. I'm sorry to hear it's kind of rainy where you're at.
That's all right. I'm happy you were able to get some sun. The rain is my favorite kind of weather. So I wasn't complaining. I got to stay in the house. I got to do all my rituals. I got to catch all my downloads and give my veneration and get an idea, excuse me, of some of these conversations we're about to embark on. Um, a wonderful, wonderful reason, not that I ever need one, to dive back into my favorite book of all time. You can find the link on my link tree and also in the description and in the news ticker at the bottom of your screen. Black Goddess Legacy of the Sacred Feminine, authored by Hero Keith Young. The topic for this evening is goddess worship, then and now. Excuse me. Um, I feel it's a interesting and perhaps needed conversation when we realize, the further back we look, the further ahead we can see. That becomes a interesting conundrum when we look back and we see some of the positions that women held, the importance, the power that they wielded, and some of the veneration um, they accepted and how they accepted. Um, there are so many gods and goddesses in particular because they came first. And of course, the further back we look, the easier that becomes to see. Um, for those who may not know, those who have not listened to the 7-week masterclass Hero Keith Young did with myself, and shout out to Sybil, Oracle Sybil, over on Clubhouse. I would highly recommend that. Hero, can you give us, for those who may not know, a little bit of the backstory, the journey, the incredible journey you took to author Black Goddess, Legacy of the Sacred Feminine?
Sure, I'll be happy to. So this is the book. This is what it eventually became. Um, so I put this together over a series of. It took me more than a decade to put it all together because there's information about goddesses from all over the world, and then there's information about the god. Is there a goddess in the Bible? I was raised a Christian, And my what got me started was actually when I was a little boy, and I was, my mother was reading me Bible stories, and she was telling me all about God the Father, and how much He loved His Son Jesus, and He loved him so much He was gonna, He required that He be sacrificed in order to save the whole world. And that made me wonder where His mother was and what she thought about this, the whole idea of this son having to be murdered and killed and sacrificed in order to save some people, some people. And then she told me that there wasn't a mother. And I was like, what? I didn't understand. I didn't even understand the concept of there being a father and a son and there being no mother. So I carried that question with me until I became an adult, and I got the chance to start looking for some answers for myself, about, is there such a thing as a mother goddess? And one thing led to another, and I kept finding more and more information about ancient goddesses, throughout history, throughout mythology, throughout religion. I kept running into goddesses under different names, maybe slightly different powers culturally. There may be some cultural differences, or something like that. But I also found a lot of startling similarities and correspondences. As I, continue my research of the goddess throughout the world, it's like, wow, these goddesses are starting to sound the same. They have a lot of the same attributes. They have very similar powers. They're connected in very similar ways. And As I kept compiling information, um, I wanted to put it together because I felt like I couldn't be the only person who had that question about there being a mother goddess. And why is there an absence of mother goddess information in religion? Why is there an absence of that, or a downplaying of the female energy? That's something else I noticed as a child, and that still goes on to this day. That there's something in our culture that downplays the feminine energy and elevates the masculine energy. And I came to learn that what I was feeling or what I was noticing was something called patriarchy. I didn't know that there was such a thing, but I learned that patriarchy is actually a system a cultural system designed to elevate the masculine and to oppress the feminine. Um, so, once again, learning all this information, I'm like, wow, this information has the potential to set people free, from that oppression. And so that gave birth to the book, and why I wanted to put it together with the goal of educating, inspiring, and empowering readers, women in particular, with the information about the goddesses and their archetypes, how they resonate, their symbols, their names, their numbers, their colors, things like that. Because when people learn that information, it's empowering. It gives you power to learn the names of these goddesses, what they do, how they do it, how they did it. Because ultimately we're talking about our ancestors as well. We're not just talking about some pie in the sky or cartoon characters or caricatures. We're actually talking about real energies that women can potentially embody, being as vessels. So that's a lot. I know I said a lot, but that was like where the Black Goddess Legacy uh, idea came from. And I just kept packing it in. The more information I found, the more I packed in. I had so much information, it was hard for me to decide what not to put in there. So that became the hardest part. Like, I had to figure out where I was going to stop. So that's where I'm at right now. I finished this one, and I'm working on a second volume, as well as doing a second edition of this first one with some updates, and corrections, things like that. So I got a few things going.
Now, thank you for that. You just displayed a great deal of understanding. And I say that because it is not very often, especially when updated or revised editions of books are coming back out. You don't hear too many authors talk about revisions and corrections. But I think that is not only the mark of a true author, but the mark of a scientist, someone who is truly consistently looking into their own information and making sure that this is this and this is still this, because we know when we, especially in terms of frequency and symbolism, something can mean something on one level, and then you kind of elevate to another, and now it has a completely different meaning, a whole new backstory, right?
Mm.
Um, Today being the 888 Lions portal, it's hard for me to truly fathom the question I'm about to ask you, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Which goddess, well, let me choose my words carefully. Which goddess comes to mind for you, or goddesses, when you think of the Lion's Gate? And the reason I posed the question in that way is because a woman will multiply anything you give her, right? So
Hmm.
any goddess is going to multiply, whatever you give her. But in terms of, Sekhmet comes to mind for some obvious reasons. Um,
Yeah.
perhaps, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
who based on your research, who comes to mind when you think of a powerful day like today, the Lionsgate?
You just said it. You just said it. Segment comes busting through. That's this is her energy all day. Literally. This is her energy all day. This is the page I did for her for Sekhmet. She represents the sun. She is a Kemetic Egyptian goddess of the sun, the scorching heat of the sun. Her name Sekhmet, it actually means power. She is one of the eyes of Ra, which means that her name also means awareness, conscious awareness, like the stuff that me and you have been into for how long now? Well over a decade, talking about and learning about, most importantly, consciousness and conscientiousness. So she is the goddess of that energy. It goes right along with the Lion's Gate portal. So yeah, she's been standing there in the center of that portal all day, beaming out her energy. Um, so Sekhmet she's one of the most powerful of deities, of female deities. She is a destroyer and a healer. Um, she has both power in equal measure. So she has the power to burn and destroy, and she also has the power to bring healing to situations. So she's very powerful today. That's who I think of in particular for a day like today, especially because of her lion correspondence. She actually is shown often, if she's not shown as a woman, she is depicted as a woman with a lion's head, particularly the female lion's head. Is one of her depictions or one of her symbols. So definitely she would be who I would associate with the Lion's Gate.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Um, I would be remiss if I didn't get your thoughts on not whether or not you're voting or who you're voting for. I don't care about any of that. Um, wh- who, if anyone, comes to mind when we mention Kamala Harris? And I wouldn't necessarily ask that question, but
uh,
there's two things that have stood out to me, because I swear I don't pay any attention to politics aside from a quick decode for the day's numerology. Um,
mhm.
I noticed Rise and Power and Brother Panic. He made a connection years ago about her being connected to Kali, right? Um, and I think that should be obvious at this point. But what's come to light for me recently is how much she laughs when she's talking or when she's attempting to talk, right?
Mm, mm,
Very, very reminiscent of a hyena. And
mm,
the hyena, for anybody who knows their mythology, is one of the arch rivals of Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman represents Ma'at. She also represents Diana, right? Moon goddesses. Love, peace, and power, Moon Feather. Thank you for joining us. Um, so there's that aspect, but then when we look up, when we look at the constellations, there's an Alamak constellation, which is Kamala backwards, and then
mm.
there's a Sarah constellation, which is Harris backwards. So from what you, not saying you pay attention or that you don't, from what you've seen from Kamala, is there any goddess correspondence?
Heck yeah, you once again you already you ahead of the class, man. You right on it. You called her out. You know, being her for the association with the goddess Kali Ma, um, who is a Hindu goddess of destruction and rebirth. In particular, destroying devils, destroying sin, destroying uh, the quote unquote evil male nature, if you will. So I mean, that association is quite powerful. I have no idea how all that is going to play out, but it's going to be very interesting. Because whatever, her energy is that of a certain amount of destruction. There's certainly going to be, whatever she does. I mean, right now, it's kind of, it is that new energy coming in. We have a whole new, way of looking at politics. What we're looking at and a woman running against a man. That's something that's, we haven't even had that conversation in a long time. Um, she's doing some things, some of the people, her associates or people that she is using uh, for her media machine, we'll call it right now, like Megan the Stallion, has her singing songs, and just some of the songs that Megan the Stallion has sung. I mean, just the associations are startling. If this was 20 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and Megan Thee Stallion would not be at a presidential candidate's uh anything. You know what I mean? Like that type of a person who has that type of rhetoric or lyrics wouldn't be allowed because it would be considered against the morals of the United States. It would be considered against the American dream, the way that we set up our culture. So there's a lot of things going on that's counter to the programming that we've experienced in years past. Like a lot of the stuff that's going on, but particularly with Kamala, and what she's doing and how she's doing it. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out and how women are responding to her and to her campaign and all that. It's going to be very interesting to see how this works. I'm sure we're going to see the destruction of um, some of the uh, sacred institutions of patriarchy. There's definitely going to a lot of change happening as far as that goes. So, but I wouldn't. I mean, there's other goddesses you could associate her with and perhaps talk about, but Kali is the most potent and powerful that I would stick with for this evening. That's a lot of strong energy. So I'm fairly excited to see what's going to happen actually, as far as her campaign goes and whether or not she is able to rise to power. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, you ain't lying about that. It's gonna be very interesting. And here's the other shoe to why I asked that question. When you look at her birthday, it is extremely telling, right? Um, and this goes into what we were talking about just before we started. So Two is the number of femininity, right? Now, we can actually argue that all numbers are the numbers of femininity, but that's going to be another conversation. Two
Yep.
specifically is the
Mm-hmm.
number of femininity.
Yep.
And we can see that from the year 2000 on. We can see the feminine energy take many forms, right? In many different people, genres, cultures, you name it. Um, Kamala is born on 10/20/1964, which makes her a five life path with secondary two energy. Right now, depending on some of these new age, um, money hungry, quote unquote, teachers out here, some people will have you believing that there is no two life path. Um, in the place of the two, they would say it would be the 11. Um, master numbers in truth are mother numbers. If they're the oldest and the rarest, they would have to be the mothers of numerology, right? That's the way that would actually work, not master. Unless we were talking about master builder, which is not just the 22, which is the four, which is the foundation, right? So
Right.
Kamala is in a 11/2 personal year, right? That's what happens when you take your month and day and add it not with your birth year, but with the year that you're currently in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she's in
Mm-hmm.
the year of ultimate femininity, right? Not only is she in the year of her own ultimate femininity, she's also born in a dragon year. So she's doubly in her energy. So, I don't get political. I've never voted a day in my life and I never will. But if she doesn't win this election, it'll be because she gave it up. Because there's nothing any powers that used to be or shouldn't be can do to make Trump win, especially when you factor in that Trump is in his enemy year, being a dog born in a dragon year. So, it's definitely going to be interesting to see the fact that she had Megan the Stallion is a male horse, by the way, twerking at a political convention. I can still hear my grandmother. What I'm saying, just like she was alive, ready to just destroy the television. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to
Yeah.
rant too much on that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I was looking for my you got me you out here talking about these numbers. You can went and made me pull up my number books, like
Yes, sir.
numerology and the divine triangle,
Yeah.
by Faith Javane and Dusty Bunker. This is this is what I would use to help me to decode that information that you're dropping about the numbers and where we're getting, where Killel is talking about the masculine and feminine numbers, and how there is such a thing. I mean, if you've been listening to Killel for any time, then you already know about these numbers. But in case you haven't heard this before, numbers are considered that they have certain correspondences, certain symbology attached to them besides what we use them for counting money or for counting things. Numbers have certain properties like gender. Like some of them are considered to be masculine, some of them are considered to be feminine. You and our base system, um, it's the odd numbers are usually considered to be the masculine numbers, while the even numbers are usually considered to be the feminine numbers. Zero is not a number, but it's a goddess archetype, in that it represents the void or the womb, the darkness from which life can be born. Like, all right. And then I think you mentioned it about there really are only nine real numbers. Every number after nine is a repetition. And it depends on the number system that you're engaging in, whether or not you count above the nine, going to 10, 11, 12, and so on and so forth. or whether you just reduce those numbers back down to a single digit. There are different systems of numerology who handle that differently. But as far as them, wanting to remove that, that's a whole. I don't know. To me, that sounds similar to what's that guy's name? Terrence Howard's. Some of his mathematical insights or things that he would like to share about certain numbers that go contrary to what hundreds if not thousands of years of wisdom surrounding numbers and their meaning and how they're added and multiplied, things like that, kind of goes contrary to that. So it sounds like whoever you're talking about suggesting that a 2 or life path is non-existent, then it sounds, to me, guys like that, you really got to prove that. You're going to have to go above and beyond to prove something like that, or to make a point that I'm going to that's going to resonate with me, because it is what it is. The 2 has been considered the female number for a long time, and there's a lot of associations with that. There's a lot of lore, mythology, history, science that is associated with that you can't just wish it away or come up with some surprise insight. You're going to have to show your work for that one. I demand that people who want to shake up the status quo in that manner, they need to show their work. So I haven't seen that, so I can't speak on it, other than my own personal opinion about that. The number, to me, it definitely, most definitely, and assuredly is as a life path number, and you can't take that away from the mother. So,
Well, here's how we can test it, right? Number one, I really want to push this point. All information should be internal first, right? And you should be able to find the reflection to confirm the why externally, right? But you should hear it internally first, because when I first came across that notion, I was appalled in a way that didn't make sense. Like there was something inside of me or something behind me that was much more offended than I was. So I knew there was something spiritual attached. Now, one way that's easily debunked is to look at these supposed 11 life path, right? And we know that there's multiple ways to get to a number. So for example, if we're talking about 10, there's the 1st, there's the 10th, there's the 19th, there's the 28th, right? So there's the same sum, but we're going to get there taking different roads. So when you look across people, when you look across places and things, you should be able to see this displayed. It's typically easiest with people. So I'll give you a couple of examples of 11/2 life paths. And mind you, we're talking about femininity. Dwayne Wade, right? Now, for anybody who pays any attention to any kind of social media, you can understand that Dwayne Wade has some very interesting associations with so-called femininity, especially when you look at his son, daughter, whatever, right? Cameron, right? The rapper Cameron. Anybody who remembers the early Pink Panther days when he was wearing all pink and purple, right? Well, wasn't not gay at all, right? Just in his femininity. Robert Downey Jr., the actor, right? Iron Man, recently announced as Dr. Doom in Avengers Doomsday. He has this femininity about him, right? In everything that he does. Pharrell is another. Tyler, the Creator, right? Paints his fingernails. Tariq Nasheed, Cat Williams, Kobe Bryant. Now, did you notice how we went from one end of the spectrum to the other? Kanye West, right? All 11/2 life paths. You can see the different levels of femininity and how it manifests not only in their actions, but in their personality, right? In their art, in their acts. So it's very easy to see why someone would want that aspect removed, especially in terms of what we deem to be brotherhood or the powers that should not be, or some of these, more mainstream ideas of patriarchy, especially in terms of passport bros, which I will not go into because I'll go into a complete rant. But that's a very easy way to debunk that the two does not exist as a life path. That's just ridiculous.
I'm with you. I don't see the, that's what it is. What it is to me. I'm in complete agreement. I'm as far as the life path and the energy behind it. That's always the job of they, the people that are doing all this clandestine activity, like that are trying to usurp or redirect power. That's really what's behind it. The redirection of power into a channel that's more profitable for, you know, um, certain people or organizations. They're always attempting to channel the energy into something that they're going to be able to make use of. So I feel like that's a, what that's what we're talking about. At the root of that is, some person or persons or groups or whoever are attempting to change, or modify the energy to the point where it's useful for them, and it somehow masks or hides the power from who it truly belongs to. Um, but to your point, there's so much expression of that energy right now, and the goddess energy is on the rise. It has been for a while now. Um, so I mean, I can understand why the enemies of that would want to attempt to corrupt it or redirect it. That's been the agenda for a little while now, the corruption of that energy, because you have, these powerful archetypes coming up. And so it's like media gets used a lot to um, promote stereotypes instead of archetypes. Archetypes being a reflection of the true energy, whereas a stereotype is like a comical parody of it. And so you have, certain people, groups that, are benefiting from the parody or the stereotype of the goddess energy, as opposed to allowing it, or as opposed to it flowing as it should and empowering women, bringing inspiration to women, bringing new understanding and insights to women. um it's, being co-opted and used to blind women, take away their voice, take away their ability to hear, um to corrupt the energy into something destructive, into destructive channels that can then be, you can use money. When things get destroyed, you need to fix them. Fixing things costs money. Money is, that's, people want to keep up a certain amount of commerce. So through destructive activities, they can do that they figured out ways to monetize our destruction, whether that be mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, all the mental trauma, sexual trauma that we go through after listening to certain songs, after imitating certain things that we see on TV and video, or that we've read in books and magazines. When we go and imitate these things and we come up with disastrous results, they figured out ways to make money off of that. So that is why they want to corrupt that energy. Whereas the all by itself, the energy is going to do, it is going to turn people on. It's going to turn women on to their inner power, their inner core, their true energy. Um, and so it is what it is. They're going to try to stop it. I understand why they're going to try to stop it. You know, Dr. John Henry Clark, you say it all the time. Your enemies, they're going to use this information against us if possible. So it's up to us to learn it and to disseminate the information as it really is. And just give the information. I don't have an agenda behind it, so I can tell you what the numbers mean without bias. I don't have an agenda behind, the goddess energy or archetypes or things like that that I found, other than that I want to use the truth about it to dispel the stereotypes, to dispel the deception behind um the goddess energy. I want to bring to light where she has been hidden, or where she has been whitewashed or turned into a devil, or a demoness or something like that. So it's like this information is open source and it belongs to everyone. So unfortunately, sometimes you have people who try to use it for nefarious ends.
Indeed, indeed. It's interesting, it's I'm reminded of that Wu Tang song. Can it be all so simple? Um, People can only tell us who we are when we're ignorant of our own knowledge of self. Um, I
Right
did a
there.
live. I did a live a couple weeks ago about the goddess Sachet, because it almost infuriated me when I realized that she didn't have a temple. Now, she shares a temple with six of her sisters in Dendera. Right, exactly. Right. You have a wonderful, wonderful section in your
Yeah.
book, Black Goddess Legacy, the Sacred Feminine of Sechet. Um, she is invoked for the creation of every single building, the writing of every book, sonnet, song, poem, uh, theorem, equation. Um, but she has no temple, right? So I can see, because of the spell of Kingu, or because of spiritual amnesia or generational curses or whatever we want to call it, I can see the ignorance and the assumption of, oh, okay, the divine portal of zero gives birth to the one, it gives birth to the son, it gives birth to the masculine principle first, and then the two, the daughter, is second. Because what's very telling about Sachet is she's either depicted as the sister of Tahuti or the daughter, right? Always the daughter of Ma'at, but never the mother. Because if she was the mother, then there would be no question as to where these things kind of come from. But to be the consort, it's like she's gone from being the author to being the secretary, right? Like literally, you know what I'm saying? Like that's where that station comes from. So, what can you tell us about Sechet as you have depicted in your magnificent tome? Because I do love her section.
Well, I will tell you that it took me quite a bit of research to identify her as a goddess associated with numbers. Because there's so many goddesses of different things that have different powers, and it made me ask the question, well, who's the goddess of numbers? And I didn't find any goddess of pure numbers in Greece or Rome or Africa or America or Japan or China. And I eventually did find Sechet, or as the consort or daughter of Tahuti. And like you said, her mythology is not uh, always at the forefront. It was kind of difficult to find. And I believe it is because of her associations with masonry. Like you said, she is before beginning any building in ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt, she was invoked. She was the invoker. She was the one that they consulted to make sure that the foundation was correct. Um, and so it's very interesting, as you stated, that she's kind of downplayed or given the place of a secretary to Hootie, when that's really not who she was to him. They worked together. She was the more in charge of the spoken word of the record. the spoken number of the record. He's more known for the written record. Although she was also a record keeper, but she wrote on the Akashic records. So she is a representation of Akasha. Her temple would be the Akashic records. So her temple would be the DNA, really. She's written into our code. Um, so her temple is, inside of all of us. So that may be another reason why there's not many, at least that we know of, external buildings which, had her name on it or which were dedicated to her. I would argue that we are all the temples of Seshet. As you mentioned, she is the portal that opened the way for, the entire universe to come through, that mother energy. So and she is the one who, when they talk about angels recording in the book of life, she is the recorder. She is the recorder of the book of life. She is the recorder of the Akashic record. She is the recorder of um our ancient ancestors, and our records. So ultimately she's responsible for um this flow of consciousness that we've been experiencing as we come into the age of Aquarius, and we're coming into the age of information, the age of knowledge, flowing, the age of, like, we're learning all these things about our ancient past that were hidden from us, that literally people rewrote history and presented it to us in institutions which we believed had authority and respect, places such as schools, churches, um, other governmental and religious institutions that we look to help us, to learn about who we are as people, where we are in the world, and things like that. They literally took time and effort to change our historical records. And ultimately, it's the Seshet energy which is responsible for ushering in the true knowledge about our records, our ancestral records, and what's in the Akashic records. That's why people are getting all people. It gets downloaded right to people now. We don't have to go through the institutions anymore, or the schools or whatnot. Seshet is responsible for unlocking the information inside of us, inside of our DNA. Um, that's straight from the Akashic records. So I agree with you that, she definitely has been downplayed, but she is the master builder behind master builders. I'm not a Mason myself, so I don't know how much they revere her or you show her any respect behind closed doors. They may do that, but outwardly I haven't seen anything. So I can't say for certain, how they treat her inside their lodges. But according to my research, she's integral to Masonry. And so they may be worshiping her or venerating her under the mother. They have the widow and her son. So she may be, that may be the aspect under which they give her some respect, or veneration as the widow, because that association would come through Isis or Osset being the mother of the child, the Haru, the son who comes along to build the temple, but Osset is the real builder of the temple. She's the one who can build a temple without a hammer or without nails, because she's doing it inside of her womb. So uh, yeah, that's that.
Exactly, exactly. You know what I'm saying? And that's a very, very powerful word. I gotta say, shout out to my big brother Michael Bell, the professor, and his book, The Occult Meaning of Masonry, where he really goes into some of those aspects. Because it's so hard, it's so rare to have these kinds of conversations with men, with other gods and titans. It's it can be difficult enough to have it with women. Shout out to Moonfeather. Shout out to shout out to Electromagnetic. Shout out to Madam. Happy birthday! Happy early birthday, Madam. Madam's birthday is tomorrow. Um, you know, I think about how important mythology and heroes are for young boys, right? How attracted we are to cartoons, especially our generation. You know, Transformers and Thundercats and He-Man. You know, such big, powerful symbols. And then I think about what the girls had. You know, the girls had things that were unique to them that sometimes it was okay for us to partake in. Like, for example, I didn't watch it on the regular, but on occasion, especially when they had crossovers, I would watch She-Ra. Right? She-Ra was the
Yeah,
female counterpart of He-Man, and we could
yeah,
argue her name was stronger because it's She-Ra, right?
yeah,
And we,
yeah,
you know, the mythology that's displayed in that cartoon was incredible. You can see the
yeah,
power of the chakras in Rainbow Bright, right? For anybody who remembers her and her horse, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
I forget the dude. There was a little dude who had like this fire robot horse. You know what I'm saying? That was like her like little best buddy or whatnot. There were unisex cartoons like Care Bears or maybe Gummy Bears. You know, it was typically a bear involved. But then you had
yeah,
the the awkward ones out like Smurfs, where you can't help but notice that you have all these men, all these males, and then only one female, and she wasn't the
yeah,
mother. So what's really going on here? Now there's an obvious connection between the Smurfs and the KKK and the Grand Wizard and all that stuff, but even that comes from our Moorish traditions in Spain. So even down to the supposed holy see or the seat of power on earth, which has been usurped from the black woman, the what do you call it, the station of the Pope, right? Like even that, when you look at it, shout out to Rod Hayes, the giant chair that is unoccupied that sits above where the Pope actually sits in that tiny little seat. That's the throne of the black woman, right? So when we talk about abundance, of course we have to go to our um, Aphrodite, right? Um, so many are going to come to mind, but Aphrodite. When I think of Aphrodite, it's hard not to compare with the idea of a matriarch or a lioness. Sensuality, passion, nature, arousal. Um, and if I remember from your book correctly, she's also known as she of the beautiful buttocks, right? And we know that we know from the quote unquote white man scientific study that the bigger a woman's derriere, possibly the smarter she is, right? There's also a correlation with the nose, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. All that's correct. Aphrodite is another one of those very powerful goddesses. That they very much simplified her into a goddess of love. And so a lot of the popular mythology that is written about her that we know about, shows some of her more superficial aspects, as being surrounded by lust and love and anger and jealousy and envy and things like that. But they do not delve too deeply into some of her more powerful aspects, as it relates to fertility, as it relates to intelligence, um, as it relates to art, and music, because she's associated with all those things as well. Um, as it associates with being a kingmaker, she was considered one of the goddesses that made men into kings, or gave them the authority to be king. And so she's a very powerful goddess. Aphrodite is. She's related to Venus in Rome. She's also related to Oshun, the Yoruba goddess. Um, the Aphrodite goddess line is very ancient. It goes back even before Greek and Roman mythology. There was an Aphrodite. So they allude to that in Greek mythology by calling her a Titan and saying that she, um, had some type of existence or rulership before the gods of Olympus, were able to usurp power from the Titans and the giants. But she is definitely a very old archetype of the feminine, the divine feminine, divine expression coming directly from the ocean and being born from time, um, or the blood of Kronos. So she is, she was born on the cosmic sea. Um, and so her power is infinite. Her power is infinite from the sea, the infinite power, generative and destructive power of the sea and the elements. She's also related to nature, and animals. She was always followed by lots of animals. She could talk to animals and they could talk to her. She could also convey the power of being able to talk to animals to people. And so, there are women who have that same resonance that have uh, similar powers to communicate with animals, to help, to heal, and for various other tasks. But once again, Aphrodite is a very powerful goddess archetype that goes back to prehistory, even. So she actually, when I was writing about her, I could have did a whole book just about Aphrodite. And I had to, once again, I had to stop. I had to stop myself from putting in so much information, because there is actually a lot of information about Aphrodite, and her relationships to other gods and goddesses, and some of her exploits. She got around. Aphrodite, she had plenty of fun, plenty of love and passion in her life. So um, she's definitely one of the ones that I feel like I learned a lot from, because I just thought she was just the goddess of love, that she would send Cupid to shoot people with the bow and then, start some mischief, and that was the end of it. But it turns out that Aphrodite, she's actually the archetype, her and Cupid, or her and his other name is Eros. They're the archetype for the Mother Mary and Jesus. They would worship. She was worshipped as the Black Madonna. She is the Madonna, the original Madonna. Aphrodite and Osset, hold the same title. But those are two different names for the same goddess. Aphrodite and Osset, Isis, they're actually the same. They're just two different names for different, that represent different aspects of the same goddess. Um, so yeah, I gotta force myself to stop now.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful thing. I'm never gonna cut your wisdom. You know what I'm saying? Because it's you're denoting and understanding that sometimes it's gradual, sometimes it comes with a floodgate. Because once you realize, like when you realize that the woman, not that the man isn't, and I'm speaking in terms of gods and mythology, and even to the point of everyone having masculine and feminine energy, but the source, um, the understanding that a woman is essentially every goddess, or the goddess is every woman. You can understand why that song by Whitney Houston, "I'm Every Woman," hit and still hits the way it does, because is singing a truth that everyone knows to be true, right? So you touched on a powerful point, speaking about how the women were the kingmakers. But when we look at Osset, Isis, right? Isis, we know symbolically, that's where we get our money symbol from, right? So we can see her influence everywhere. And it's really the same with Aphrodite. I'll never forget, I think I was 17 or 18 when I realized, oh my God, her name is where we get aphrodisiac. You see,
Aphrodisiac. That's right. That's where you get
Ex-
aphrodisiac.
let me say, for anybody who may not fully be able to see, you need this book in your life. You can see the link on your screen. The artwork matches the information. The artwork is absolutely incredible. There was no time wasted. I cannot recommend this book enough. He actually just told me that there's a Kindle version available because I don't even want to take my soft cover everywhere I go, but I do. You know what I'm saying? I'm thankful I'll be able to leave that at home now. Um, Offset bestows the throne itself, right? So we
She
can
is
understand.
actually is the throne. Actually, she
Right.
is the throne. She's the lap. The her lap is the throne.
Exactly. Exactly. Please touch on that.
Well, that's okay. That was an important part of the what I found in the research. Um, and I'll tell you an interesting story about how or do you remember the movie in the Black Panther, a movie that recently came out, um, and in the first one, right after the Black Panther was defeated by Killmonger, or it appeared that he was defeated. The mother, his mother, and his sister were automatically were on the run, and I had a major point of contention with just one part of that story, just one part of the movie. And it was when General Okoye in the movie, she wouldn't go with the mother and the daughter. She said specifically, you all go on. I'm here to protect the throne. And then she pointed at the throne of T'Challa. And it made my head pop off darn near, when she said that, because I had been doing this research about the goddesses, and in particular Osset, and it just made me angry because she was pointing at an empty chair saying that that was the throne. And in point of fact, the empty chair is not the throne, not at all. General Okoye should have accompanied the mother and the daughter as their protector, because the mother and the daughter represent the throne now and the throne in the future. So she decided to stay behind to protect an empty chair and let the true thrones be exiled, and sent them up to go to somewhere else to find safety, and ignoring the fact that she basically abandoned the real throne. So that was like a major point of contention in that movie for me. That was like, wow, to me it was almost a perfect movie until they did that. And I was like, wow, they really went hard. They made it a point. I felt they made it a point to say that that empty chair was the throne instead of Offset. And to the point they did that, it actually made me put that information in the book. So I wasn't quite finished with the book, but because they did that part in the movie, there's a whole part in the book about the breakdown of that symbolism, and you got me here pointing to a chair, and I'm showing how that's an empty throne, and next to it there's a picture of Osset, with Haru sitting on her lap as the true throne. So once again, that information is in the book. I actually have a breakdown of that part of the movie um, in the book that talks about, what I just, the story I just shared about how that's a historical and cultural inaccuracy that they put in that movie by showing an empty chair being a throne that supposedly a black king was gonna sit on. That's not the throne at all. So that was one of the reasons why I wrote this book, because they would put information like that in a movie, and everybody's all excited about it, and then nobody wants to say anything bad about, wow, it was a great movie. Well, it was so many great black actors and actresses, and they showed such great culture, and they showed us doing powerful things. They showed us in very powerful ways. They left out a lot of stereotypes, but they did attempt to sneak in some things that could potentially pull the power away from where it really belonged. So that was another one of the impetuses for me to create Black Goddess Legacy, to re-inject the true cultural meanings, symbolic meanings of the goddesses, and what their power really represents, because that's what's been taken out of the media. That's what's been taken out of certain religions and spiritual traditions. That's what's being oppressed in this current paradigm that is bubbling up. It's coming up just like Aphrodite bubbled up to the surface of the ocean and presented herself. The goddess energy is continuing to bubble up, and to present itself to the world.
Most definitely, most definitely. It's wild what you said about Black Panther. I've heard one other person say that, and that was Brother Panic. Brother Panic did a decode of Black Panther when it first came out, and it got taken down. Right?
Mm,
I watched
mm,
it maybe halfway through before I decided to try to download it, and by the time I had clicked out of it, it had been deleted. And
wow.
he did another one where he didn't touch on some of the things that he touched on in the first one because it was like deemed hate speech or some shit like that. But the same thing you're talking about, they actually did in part two as well, right?
Mm,
They even did, and they went so far as to actually killing the queen, killing Ramonda, Angela. Oh God, I can't think of her name in real life. Um, um,
Angela Bassett's character.
Angela Bassett, killing the queen. Not only
Wow.
killing the queen, but then the throne was then abdicated. You know what I'm saying? Especially towards the end, where they they made it a point not to recast T'Challa, and that was actually more of an insult to the feminine than it was to the masculine. I've heard um, a lot of men complain about that, especially over the years, because how many Spider-Man have we had? How many Batman, Superman, James Bond, on and
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
T'Challa was even though he was so corrupted and malleable, because he went from being the leader of this secreted nation to opening himself up to the world, essentially because a white man has saved his woman, right? And then all of that is for naught when he's killed. But before he dies, he made sure to introduce himself to the United Nations. You know what I'm saying? So like it's always the subtle things. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. That's the okey doke. That was the okey doke for sure, because it also goes against the idea um of a fallen Messiah that returns, or that is given new life, which the mother and the daughter have the power to do. Heck, they even could have got there was another very powerful female character, T'Challa's girlfriend in the first movie. I'm forgetting her name as well, but she also could have filled in the role of being the one to be the gateway for the next Black Panther to come through. Because and that, once again, the whole thing is by design. It's the women that can make the man into the king, or to the Messiah, the one who comes again. Um, so the attempt is to take that power away, and to leave us powerless, to leave us like with the idea that Osiris is dead and Haru is not coming. There is no redemption. By going with that narrative, they take away the mythology, the mythological aspect, or the mythological archetype of the mother and the son, the mother who is giving birth to the fallen father's son, which is his copy, which is his exact duplicate, which is him coming again. So that in that way they're able to, attempt to spiritually castrate the energy, to to present it in such a powerful way, and then to take it away and basically say nah 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 nah, and it ain't coming back. You know what I mean? They even could have gone so far as to make Killmonger, return him, and have him return as the good guy. That's also part of our mythology, where Set becomes a good guy. He turns from evil to the light in the absence of the light. They leave that out as well. So, they definitely were, that's the agenda behind, they, when we're not the ones doing it, we're not responsible for putting it out, then that's what we have. We're at the mercy of the people who do fund these projects and who are responsible for putting them out. Undeniably, they're going to sneak something in there that's to disempower us, is their goal. So guys like me and you, we got to put it back in there, or show how it was taken out, to bring the empowerment back, to tell the stories in a way that when they're told in the future, that they're told correctly and with power,
Most
with power.
Most definitely, most definitely. Shout out again to Electromagnetic on Instagram checking in. Brought up a really good point, speaking to exactly what you said. When we look at Lovecraft Country, right? For anybody who may not be familiar, Lovecraft Country was a series on HBO starring Jonathan Majors that was canceled after one season. Um, when you look at the differences from the book, because it is an ongoing book series. There's two books out so far. The third one's supposed to be coming out next year, I believe. Um, you can understand why they would invert and make some of the changes that they make, especially when you know the source material, because there are stark differences. If you don't know, then it's just a sign of the times, and they're just going along to get along using buzzwords and terms. No, it goes deeper than that. So, in Lovecraft Country, for example, um, Uncle George has a daughter on the TV show named Dee. But in the book, he's a boy named Horace. Well, we know Horace is the play on Haru, so we know who D is actually supposed to be. So that might be a positive, depending on your perspective. But in order to pay for that, in order to pay for you getting that bit of truth, they'll take Montrose, who is heterosexual in the book, and they'll make him Michael K. Williams' character, who is gay. Not only is he gay, but he has questionable urges and questionable preferences because for
Mm,
those who watch the movie, I won't go, or the series, I won't go too far into it here, but it's very graphic and it's very admonishing. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not a wonderful loving experience. It's the complete opposite. And
yikes.
there's a natural aversion that's built into the show specifically for that. But that it's kind of like the bad magician because it's getting you to look over here. You can't turn your eyes away from this accident, as opposed to watching this subtle move I'm depicting on the other screen. You see,
Hmm.
so you always want to be aware of what's going on and why, especially when something may be popular or drawing a certain attention in any way is associated with what we deem to be occult or upper echelon learning. When your symbology is being depicted,
Yeah,
you have to recognize it because you're the only one who can correct it.
right. That's the idea behind all of this, really, like to look at it from an internal perspective, that all the goddess energy, all the God energy is actually already inside of each one of us. And there are ways to activate that energy. You know, you and I use the symbols, we use the numbers, we use the names to invoke the energy. And so, you know, the powers that be do the same thing. They use the symbols, the numbers, the names to invoke the energy. And um, their goal is to corrupt it and to have us misuse the energy, to misuse the power, to misuse the energy of what? Right? Tahuti represents your mind. So to represent to corrupt the energy of your mind is to corrupt how you think. Sachet represents your mind and your numbers, your intuition, your insight. If your intuition, if you have false ideas about certain symbols, about certain numbers, about certain names, then you have a flaw in your thinking. That's how they corrupt our God code, if you will. If there's such a thing as a God or a goddess code that we have, it can be corrupted by um, showing us the symbols, showing us the numbers, showing us the names, and then showing us false correspondences, showing us false relationships, or not necessarily false, but simply concentrating on the negative aspects. You know, once again, as we study esoterics, we understand that everything has polarity. Everything is negative and positive. Everything is dark and light, including God and goddess energy. So Aphrodite has negative aspects to her personality, just like she has positive aspects to her personality and her archetypes. So the goal of the corruptors is to highlight the destructive and dangerous aspects and to leave out the healing and the creative aspects. So that's really what the game that's being played is. And you know, for people like us, you know, we want to show the fullness. It's not just about evil. It's not just about bad. It's not just about darkness. It's about bringing balance to the force, balance to the energy, harmony. It's about creating ma'at. Ma'at is balance and harmony and justice and truth and righteousness. Um, so it's going to be up to us to highlight and bring out those positive aspects of these archetypes, um, as opposed to just focusing on the negative ones, or even how it negatively affects us. It's far more powerful to start talking about the positive aspects of it and what we can use to empower ourselves, what we can use to enlighten ourselves, as opposed to just you know, even us getting caught up in revealing what they are doing to us. It goes beyond that. You know, people get stuck there, just, you know, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing, you know, always pointing the finger. And it's like, yeah, but we have all this power inside of us, negative and positive, male and female, dark and light. You know, what are you going to do with that power? Stop, you know, let's just stop playing footsies with it, and you know, let's start activating these archetypes. Let's start working in our genius, um of both the masculine and the feminine energies. That's where the real power is at, and that's where we really are going to, you know, break down the systems that currently oppress us, you know, that are based that are able to oppress us based on our ignorance of these things.
That is a very, very crucial and powerful point. Um, I'm gonna hit you with this, and we're gonna start to maybe work our way out of here because this can go, you know, all night. We already know how we can do. Um, I was thinking about something as you were saying what you were saying, and oh, I think we have a special guest coming in here. Oh, love, peace, and power, Moni. How are you? Are you able to speak?
Hello, do you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. How you doing? Thank you for
Oh,
joining us.
what is going on? Oh my gosh, guys. Geez, I'm sorry, give me 1 second. The phone is ringing. I have to answer it, guys. Give me one moment. I'll be right back. I'm so sorry.
It's
No
okay. Go right
problem.
ahead. That is awesome. I will go ahead and get my point real quick.
Right.
Um, I've heard, especially when I was studying to be a pastor early in life, there were these whispers of the idea that Lucifer was actually a woman, right?
Mhm.
And even more so, the idea that God was actually a woman. When you speak about how some of us can focus on the negative and focus on what they are doing as opposed to what is possible for us to do, um, something that helped me with that was the realization of once you see something, you see it, and it may be a little bit of a work to stretch that understanding across the spectrum, but
Mhm.
you can see it completely, even and especially with religion. So when we look to the idea of Lucifer being cast out and Lucifer being the light bearer, well, that has to be the feminine principle, right? So we can literally see the inversion, especially when we go back into other mythologies, which is why the Bible is so heavily promoted as the one and only truth, even though Islam is technically the biggest religion across the earth, right? Um, can you add any insight to that?
Can I add any insight to um say it one more time?
So like the idea, it's very easy to see the why it would be beneficial to the powers that used to be and the powers that should not be. The idea of inversion, because if you can create a symbol or invert a symbol to where the opposite gender or people who view themselves as the opposite gender, especially in this age that we're in now currently, so many people are able to essentially pick up this mantle no matter what their gender is. So now the idea of womanhood and femininity loses even more of its original context, you see.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the them doing that is so many. It's like power plays on so many levels. You know what I mean? When as they rewrote the Bible or rewrote the stories, so that the divine feminine would be the causation of the fall of man. So they did that with Eve. They took her story and corrupted it so that she was the one who was blamed or to be at fault for the fall of all mankind. Um, and I think it might have made more sense if they told the story of a father divorcing a mother and being pissed, being angry and being like vengeful about it. Like, I don't want them around, I don't want them up here, I don't want, I'm kicking them out, I want, you know we see that kind of behavior in divorce court every day, and act like we don't. But that's one of those stories that you're right to once again to take the power away or to subvert the story. They change characters, they change genders, to the point where in a lot of modern media, because they don't show Lucifer or Satan or the devil as a woman per se, but they will show the character as an effeminate man more often than not. um so it's like, um you know a way to that was how patriarchy was able to subvert the matriarchy. They needed those stories of a woman as the cause of the problem, so that they could use that to take away the power of the mother, which was ubiquitous and all over the world. Everywhere all over the world, there was veneration of the mother, the great mother, the grandmother, the mother. All over the world, this was the case. And so they were able to use these Abrahamic stories to vilify women and to subvert their power and to make it look as if it's God ordained, um, to look as if that only justice is being done. Um, And so, to your point, they definitely changed those stories and used them for detrimental purposes towards the divine feminine, to usurp it and to um to make it look wrong, to make it look evil, to make it, to a lot of the goddesses were vilified into devils, into demons, into, even Lilith. Lilith being, if you go by certain stories, Adam's first wife. And that when she, escaped from the thrall of Adam and escaped out of Eden, that she went into the desert and she began copulating with a bunch of devils and demons and giving birth to devils and demons and things like that. It's another story to subvert that energy and to make it look as if that is the causation of all the world's problems. So I don't know. I don't know if I addressed your question. Did I?
Oh yeah, most definitely, most definitely. Um, because it's one of those problems I don't think we fully recognize because we haven't grasped the implications and how far reaching they are. Um, to understand that essentially every hero, every villain, every mantle, every god has been inverted and stolen from the idea of femininity or a goddess. That's insanity to some people. You know, um, even some women. You know, it's amazing what religion can do to the mind. Because it's not to take anything away from men, but men have, and I don't want to say men, I want to say males and boys. I don't think men truly have these issues, whether they're conscious of this information or whether it's just an inherent knowing. Because my grandfather, for example, I know he knew some of these tenets, but he wasn't on it like that, because a lot of this information was not available in his day. And that the information isn't the end all be all. The information is ultimately to remind you of what it is you already know, right? You're not really learning when you're reading, you're doing the study. You're studying in the first place because your intuition has pointed out something that's not right or something that's fishy about this, or you're just drawn to this information and you have no idea why. And then you come
Yeah.
across movies and films and books and people who reverberate that intention and that understanding to you. This is the
Mhm.
purpose of study. This is how you gain knowledge and stuff, and it's a never ending journey. But the sooner we make peace with the understanding that everything is feminine, and if there is a level of offense or a level of anger or a level of hurt, that's just showing you where the work is. And the more you dive into that, the more you'll relieve that. Because that's actually a calling. But I don't want to preach. Mooney, are you back with us yet?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry about that, guys. There's just so much going on today. It's such a powerful, energetic day, and but it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful. I'm sorry I came in late. I decided to just on a whim go live. I was inspired by Spirit to go, and it was amazing. It was amazing. But yeah, I feel bad just coming in at the end. I did get to jump in, hear a little bit of what you guys were talking about. I couldn't miss it because Keith was going to come on and talk about his wonderful book. And yeah, definitely, I love the points that you guys have been touching on, at least the ones that I've been listening to here at the end. Um, as far as my own experience with how the divine feminine was always attacked, I learned that firsthand with my own culture. You know what I'm saying? Puerto Ricans on the island. forget it. You know, it's domestic violence is huge on there, but then at the same time, if you really study it, which I did when I was living there for 15 years, um, a lot of the hate for women came from women themselves. They were extremely, very masculine. It's usually the mothers, you know, they tend to coddle the boys and then give a lot of heat to, you know, to the daughters, you know. So men are taught to, you know, treat women as, you know, just whatever, you know. And then the women is supposed to be constantly chasing after the man and things like that. So, you know, it's deep, it's very deep rooted, you know. And whether religion was a factor, or, you know, possibly, I'm sure it was, you know. But yeah, that it's a very real thing in my culture for sure.
You know, if I may, you know, like I said, all these archetypes have negative and positive aspects. And to your point about a lot of some of the church mothers being the ones who were handing out the torture, some of the ones who were handing out some of these doctrines that we had to live, you know, that we were taught to live by, that, you know, in this day and age are considered to be toxic behaviors. Um, and that's one of those things that, you know, the ladies, you all are going to have to deal with, because they're just like there are some awesome goddess archetypes that we still can't ignore the destructive ones. And that there are some women who
Mm-hmm.
embody that destructive energy and use it to the detriment of their community and other women. Um, so there are some feminine spirits out there that, you know, you know, I'm loath to call their names because they're called so often and in a stereotypical manner, but there is such a thing as a Jezebel spirit. There is such a thing as a spirit of Babylon. There is such a thing as a dragon type spirit, a destructive dragon type spirit. And you know, we need the mothers who embody the opposite polarity to step up, to take their place, because in the absence of the guardians, in the absence of the goddess of compassion, in the absence of the goddess of justice, um, those negative destructive archetypes run amok and they run rampant, and to the destruction of, like I said, not just other you know, the community, but to other women, to their sons, to children, whom they are able to embody certain negative aspects into. um so the counteractive to that would be those of us who recognize those negative aspects, and that we have, you know, we partake in the opposite of that, or the, you know, what's contrary to that. We're needed to bring balance. We're needed to bring harmony to that type of energy, because I know exactly what you're talking about, and I too have been abused by it. I don't know too many people that grew up in our community that weren't at one time abused by a mother who went too far. You know, the mean mother. You know what I mean? I don't know if y'all used to do this, but you know, I would look at other people's, you know, my friends' children and be like, yeah, he got a mean mama. I'm glad. Some women, you know, they have some aspects you like, yeah, I'm glad she's not my mom. So, you know, all women are special. All women are special. There's a time and a place for everything. You need that, you know, that certain energy when you need it. But when you don't need it, you know, we need to have, you know, the love and the compassion and the kindness and the creativity. um you know, it's a time and a place for that as well. So just to your point, I just wanted to add that to what you mentioned about the some of the mothers being more, you know, more harsh than even the men. You know, when it come to, you know, came to stuff like, you know, who got to
Mm-hmm.
eat first? that no man in church ever told me that I was eating first. The only person that ever told me that was the grandma or a mother. Like, he eats first. He get the plate first. You do this. It was like they had a certain set of trauma that they were passing down to us, and I did not get that from men. A lot of aspects of patriarchy I didn't get from men at all. I got from women. They were teaching me. They taught me certain things that, now in this day and age, that I'm thought of as a male chauvinist for some of the activity I was taught was being a gentleman when I was a child, opening doors for women, letting them go first, ordering at the table. I was taught by a lot of women to, I'm the one that's supposed to order the food. And then as I got older and older and times began to change, women are looking at me like I'm crazy, like I'm overbearing, like I'm doing, well, wait a minute. My mama told me I was supposed to do that. My grandma told me that. Surprise, surprise. It's patriarchal. I shouldn't do that. So, as times change and as more knowledge and information comes to the forefront, we can kind of counteract that. But that's definitely a thing.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad that you brought that up, because that is so true. Um, as as like as time have passed by, I would see, like, wait a minute, this can't be it. Because I suffered a lot of domestic violence because of it. Because I had to let the man have his place and things like that. And I couldn't talk back, and I couldn't do this, and I couldn't do that. I was like, this cannot be the answer. I knew somewhere deep down inside, even though I was raised this way, I knew something deep down inside there was something wrong. So when I broke out of that, because the children suffer too, under that. Because if the mom isn't happy and she's being abused, the children aren't happy because mom is unhappy. So I had to do some really deep work. It took a lot of years to get where I am right now. And I'm extremely grateful, because now, my kids finally have, like, the nurturing mother that they very well deserve. And they're like, Mom, my goodness, now they see it with their friends, like, oh my goodness, my friend's mom is like this, and they don't take care of them the way you take care of us. And it's hard, being a single parent, because I have to play both roles. I have to be the divine masculine and the feminine. I need to go out, work, make a living, provide for my children, and then switch hats. And it's not easy, because within that, trying within having that lifestyle, or switching in between, something always tends to suffer a little bit, like, you don't get to spend too much quality time with the kids, things that matter, and, like, oh, wait a minute, then you got to play catch up. So you really do try to balance it as much as well. I try to balance it as much as I can. But I'm so glad I did break away from, those crazy toxic, or that toxicity within my own culture, because it's horrendous. It's horrendous, and the more I look online through social media, you still see that it's still so very prevalent today. But then at the same time, as I'm, doing the work, walking the path that I'm walking, I'm starting to be more connected with a lot of women who are spiritual healers, that are on the same level, that are bringing the nurturing into the family, and the love, and all of these wonderful things. And then it's like, okay, there is a fraction of of my kids' generation that are still going to be, pretty, grow up halfway decent, because I teach my boys the same thing, like, listen, you need to do this for women, you need to be the provider, and so forth and so on. And then I have to teach my daughter as well, listen, this is what a partner looks like. This is what a husband should do for you, and things like that. And they get it. They get it. And I'm so glad, because it's like where they are at their age now, I was nowhere near that myself growing up, you know. But yes, I think we need more men like yourselves coming out and having more of these conversations, because women need to know, women need to hear, this beautiful, how do you, in Spanish we call it alabar. Alabar is praise, towards the divine feminine, and we need to hear that more from men. And it's very inspiring. It's very inspiring, and it's very healing as well.
Ashe, well, that was my goal in writing Black Goddess Legacy of the Sacred Feminine, to inspire and educate and empower Black women in particular, but women in general, all women, take part of this legacy, because we're all daughters of, you're all daughters of the Great Mother. We're all children of the Great Mother. So this information has the power to help us all, to bring order and harmony and some order back to the universe, the one song, from which we were all born and which we're all living in and partaking in. So I'm glad to hear that the information has had that effect on you, and I would like to continue to share the information about Black Goddess Legacy and all the wonderful goddesses that are inside of it, and all the things that I learned as a result of it. I learned from this. I've been able to change my life and my behavior from this. I'm not attempting to be like the spokesman for women, or to act like I'm a perfect man and I'm the perfect man to get with, or like I'm divorced. I've had bad relationships. I've had good relationships with women. So I've had just like everybody else. So I'm not trying to be something that I'm not, or to uh, push any kind of religious agenda or anything of that nature. It's just, this information is fascinating to me. It's something that I feel like I've been engaged in for lifetimes. And like Kalel mentioned earlier, that it's just something that resonated with me, and that it's been talking to me since I've been born. The movies, certain stories resonate with me, certain mythologies that wound up in my hands. None of that stuff is happenstance. At least I don't believe so. I don't believe so for anyone. I believe we're all, we're engaged in the work now that we were engaged in probably before we left here the last time. So I feel like this information is ancient, and that it belongs to us, that it's open, an open source of power for men and women to partake in, because goddesses are powerful and gods are powerful. Men are powerful and women are powerful. We have our own attributes and aspects, and those need to be known. It needs to be known more of the archetypes of the feminine than we currently have been exposed to. We need to know more aspects of the masculine than we currently have been exposed to. The more we know, the better we can manage our power and be able to operate from our power, be able to operate from these archetypes, be able to operate from these goddess names and numbers and symbols and things like that, which ultimately is the goal for me. And that I hope other women, I hope women are able to tap in to this information, because if it can break them free from patriarchal bullshit. It could break them free from programming. It could just give certain levels of self-esteem based on the knowledge of these great women that were venerated. Their veneration is timeless. It's timeless. It has been, and it will be so in the future.
That's beautiful.
Ashe.
I've got two more questions, and I'm going to direct these to both of you. Um, Hero, I know this from having the honor of being your friend and being able to call you brother for a long time. That Hero, as you also depict in your book, literally translates to "gone to the goddess," right?
Yes.
Um, do you have now? I would be remiss if I didn't assume some things. I would imagine you're a great deal like me in terms of the first goddess I would imagine you would go to for anything would probably be your mother, right? Aside from your mother, which goddess would be a go-to for you in terms of um, universality? And what is your favorite form of worship that you have come across in your mass amounts of research in terms of goddess worship? And that's also for you, Moonfeather.
Um, I would say that the goddess, well, one of the goddesses that resonates with me very strongly is Mother Nature, um, the Mother Earth, um, in that, we live upon her. We live upon her and we live because of her. Um, and so, she has been the one who I've been able to get healing from. I've been able to reset myself, um, been able to reconnect with nature and the cosmos. And her worship is not complicated or crazy, or it could take many forms. Spending time in nature is a form of worship, is a form of worshiping Mother Earth. Spending time in the forest, at the lake, at the water, at the ocean, at rivers, at springs, going for a hike, spending some time soaking up the sun, going to the beach. Um, those are all great forms of worship. Trees, going to trees, leaving offerings at trees. Um, and the offering could be whatever is on your heart, whatever, there's different traditions. Some people leave food, some people leave water, some people leave spirits, some people leave gifts. Um, some people, tithing it was originally for the mothers. You were supposed to give when, as a son, one of the ancient traditions was that the sons would give 10% of their harvest to their mother, back to their mother. And in that way, she would be able to feed not only herself in her old age, but she would also be able to provide food uh, for the community. And so that actually became one of the ways why the father god was thanked, or was to be thanked for the food, because not only was the father responsible for tilling the ground, providing certain sustenance and provision for his family, but more often than not, he would be providing levels of sustenance for his whole community through his mother, through tithing to her. So a certain amount of his labor would be given back to his mother. So that's yet another way that, making sure your mom is tight. If you don't do nothing else for Mother Earth, make sure your mom is okay. Check on your mom. Do some nice things for her. Don't forget her. Make sure she's able to eat, get where she's got to go. Help her out where you can. Do the best you can for your mother. That's a spiritual principle that um it it held true in the past, and it still holds true today. By giving your mother her respect and her due, it is one of the most powerful forms of worshiping the mother goddess. Um,
That was great. That was great. Thank you for that. Mooney, how about you?
Thank
Go
you for
to
that. Yes, thank you for that, hero. You know, when I started really getting on this path to, enlightenment and really tapping in with myself, with my true self. I I would say I was a very spiritual person, even though I was raised Catholic and then I went to Christianity and but I just always felt, even when I was younger, I was extremely spiritual because I would see things in particular ways that, when I reflect on them now, I was like, wow, too bad I didn't have like a mentor when I was a little girl, because oh, forget about it. I would have been out of here already. Probably, but would have been out of here. But anyway, I remember that when my only daughter was born and she began to talk, which she's on the spectrum. She's high functional, but she's autistic, but she's extremely, extremely talented. Kalal has seen her artwork. She's an artist and she's amazing now. She goes actually to a performing arts school, a high school actually. And I'm sorry. Did you say something, Keeks?
no, I didn't say anything.
Oh,
no,
okay.
ma'am.
Okay. Sorry, I thought I heard something. So when she was born and she began to talk, and she would call my name, but she wouldn't say mommy or mama. No, for months, she would call me Cece. And I'm like, no, Hannah, I'm mama. Soy mama, mama. And it was like, Cece, Cece. She would call me Cece the entire time, Cece. So when I began this like journey, and I was reflecting on a lot of things in the past, and then I was like thinking of all these crazy synchronicities. And I was thinking of when my daughter would call me Cece. I said, wait a minute, I happened to write it down. I wrote it down in a journal. And I said, Cece, because C in Spanish is yes, S-I, right? So I wrote S-I-S-I, and I was like, holy crap, this is ISIS backwards.
Wow, how about that?
I said,
Yeah.
what? And I was like, no way. And I had shared that with Kalal, and then he was like, that's wild. So honestly, the goddess that I've mostly uh have related to is Isis,
Hmm.
and uh I've never been big on worshiping. I love the statues when I was growing up, going to the botanicas and seeing them. I loved them. I loved it, but I never felt drawn to worship them, leave gifts. Like maybe if I would do like a particular ritual, I would just do it, out to the universe, or maybe once in a while to a particular god or goddess. But I've never been drawn to it, you know. But like I said, the goddess that I would definitely most relate to is the Great Mother Isis, and how I honor that is by honoring myself, by tapping into my own intuition, and tapping into, you know, um, my powers within, always giving gratitude to the Most High, always giving gratitude to my ancestors, but and not to take away anything from that just because I don't, I don't adhere to a particular goddess or anything like that. But I think everyone's walk is unique, and their connection to spirit is unique, and you find your way there, uh through your own intuition, through spirit, which is, at the end of all things is you, guiding yourself through this amazing thing we call life, and the spiritual awakening. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you both for sharing that. I think it's important for people to hear. I touched on the point earlier of the importance of having something that level, having a goddess, having a god to look up to, um, that almost inadvertently or sometimes very directly becomes a piece of our code, right? A piece of our own code of honor. Um, for me, there's always been a heroic aspect to my heroes, to my heroines, to my gods and my goddesses. Um, my go-to goddess for universality would have to be Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin helped me in my mind, in my heart, redeem my heart and my feelings and my actions and gain a level of understanding and clarity I couldn't have gotten from anyone else. Um, and my favorite, aside from doting, aside from just, reminding someone how wonderful they are, um, my favorite form of worship would be compassion. It would be forgiveness. You don't necessarily, we can get into the theology of sin, whether it exists or whether it doesn't. But the idea of sin can be a great thing when you understand that you may not fully understand how much love you're capable of until you're able to forgive, right? Yourself, most of all. Um, I want to thank you, Moonfeather, for joining us. You have a interview coming up?
And you're very welcome. An interview, yes, I do. I have an interview coming up, which will be posted on the 20th. It is with April. She is the creator of the All Together podcast, and yeah, it's great. It was a really, really amazing interview, and yeah, so that's coming up on the 20th, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, on the 20th. And if at the end of here the live, if you guys wouldn't mind, I broke out the African Goddess Rising Oracle deck. If I could pull a card for, I guess, the collective, during this time, you'd let me know if we have time for that.
Please. Please
Okay.
and thank you.
Okay, awesome. Hold on a second. Let me turn on this camera and face it this way. Oh, where are we? Here we go. What is going on, guys? So welcome. Welcome to the Mooniverse. So excuse me. I have a lot of smoke that's coming on here. This is crazy. I did a live for 2 hours straight. It was amazing. And I went live on TikTok. So that was pretty crazy as well. Okay, guys, let me go here. And let me shuffle these cards really good. I guess we'll just pull for the collective, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, awesome. Ooh, this is going to be interesting. Spirit, let's pull an African Goddess Rising Oracle card for the collective. What do you want to let the collective know during this time? What do you want to let the collective know during this time? Thank you, Spirit. What do you want to let the collective know during this time? These cards, the artwork, ooh, thank you. The artwork on these cards is amazing. What do we have here? Ooh, Abol Nimba, Harvest. Number 40, let me go this way. Number 43. Sevens have really been, even though we're in 888, but sevens have been amazing. They've been showing up like crazy. At least for me, they have. Harvest. Look how pretty that card is. Okay, let me look her up here. 43. Oh, look at that. I just opened up to her. That's wild. Okay, so she's from Guinea. She's the goddess of harvest. She's the temple, the high priestess, and her element is water. Abol is a Baga fertility goddess, and Nimba is her living spiritual healing mask. Together, they embody the sacred feminine and abundance. Give thanks, you are being blessed. It is harvest time. That's wild because we're going into a harvest season, which is fall right now. That's coming up, which is wild. And then I had also posted a video on how the month of August is also, the number 8 is also a number of, sowing or reaping what you've sowed, and it's a time of harvest. So that's wild. It is harvest time. Pay attention. A season of great harvest is a season of great epiphanies. You are prospering. The embodiment of this card is harvest is when you reap the blessings that you have sown. I just said that. That's wild. The harvest is not just the fulfillment of your dreams, but the creation of them. Your thoughts, your imagination, the blessing of you being here another day on this earth. That is all harvest. What seeds of generosity, love, support, and goodwill can you sow in your community to create a bountiful harvest for all? The goddess declaration is we are all prospering. So that is beautiful. That's the message for the collective for this time.
Thank you, thank you. That artwork is gorgeous, and the message is even more so.
Definitely, for sure.
So I want to thank you, Hero, for joining us yet again. Um, Tell us again, you mentioned that you're working on the latest edition of Volume 1, but you're also working on Volume 2. Anything else on the horizon, or anything else that you want to speak about to the people? I would love to have you back, maybe sometime next month. I want to make this a little bit more of a series. We can move through the cycles of time a bit, because next month going into Virgo, that's going to bring up a lot of wonderful goddess conversation. But the floor is yours, please.
Well, bro, thanks for having me once again. I appreciate you inviting me on the show and allowing me to share more information about my book, Black Goddess Legacy of the Sacred Feminine, and just sharing some of the insights that I was able to gather as I was doing my research. It's really appreciated because, as I stated before, my intention is to educate, inspire, and empower people with this information. And, you sharing your platform with me allows me to do that. So Thank you, bro. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you, Mooney, for coming on and co-hosting and sharing your insight and energy with us. That's also much appreciated. As I said at the beginning, I'm working on a second volume of the book, which is going to have even more goddesses. Um, and I'm also working on a second edition of this book, just to add some corrections to some typos and some information that I found throughout, some different things that I would maybe like to add or take away. So all those things are on the way. As you know, they're big projects, so it's going to take me some time. I don't have anything immediate coming out on the horizon, but I do plan on speaking on the topics a lot more coming up. So I'll be back here with you, Kalel, and I'm definitely interested in sharing more information about the legacy from different perspectives. You're right, there's so many different ways we could look at it and to explore the information that's in it and to be able to get something out of it. So you just let me know. I'm available for sharing the information. Um, anytime here. I'm honored to be a guest on your show. Um, That's about it. I'll be at there's a Detroit retro gaming show coming up in November that I'm going to be at, and then I'm also going to be doing an art exhibit of some of the artwork from the books. And that'll be coming up if not late this year, early next. So I'll keep you posted on that, and that's about it.
Excellent, excellent. I very, very much look forward to all of that. We will definitely get you back here much sooner. I know how much Mooney loves to be a part of these conversations. I love having her here. Thank you, Mooney, for joining us. Do you have any final words for the people?
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for just as Hero said, for this space to come in and share our ideas, our experiences. It's always wonderful to get together, especially with both these, because we did that Dune decode, and I we still gotta go deeper into it. It's wild. I had so much fun with that last live. Keith, it's always a pleasure to share this space with you as well. And thank you so much. Thank you for being so devoted, like really devoted to um one, to your right, to your purpose, and to spread knowledge on the divine feminine, and just being very open, and I absolutely appreciate that. And to everyone, thank you so much for joining the chat, for chiming in, and sharing your time with us. I'm extremely grateful for everyone, and thank you so much again. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Mooney. We love it when you are here. Thank you so much for joining us, Keith. We will be in touch very soon. And love, peace, and power to everybody on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Thank you for joining us. Tap in and, you know, pay attention to your intuition. Pay attention to where your energy is drawn, and understand that you have two polarities, right? That masculine and that feminine ain't gonna lie to you at all. Understanding that, becoming aware of that, is work that only you can do. Some of you may have been born that way. Some of us is going to take a little bit more work, but pay attention to the stories you entertain. Pay attention to the stories that always lock you into your attention, because you might be surprised the mythology that they are derived from. Love, peace, and power, everybody.